back. I'm Ginger Stocky with the strange Jay Williams and the slightly odd Aaron Cluley. 3 friends who are all in very different stages of life and know the importance of having honest, loving women around you. Because they're making faces at me while I do this. That's why I call them strange. When we need a little extra help, we call it Miss Joyce and we ask her, sometimes you just need to talk about life with your girlfriends. So consider yourself one of us, if you dare, and let's talk it out.
I wasn't giving you a scare face. I was winking at you. We're talking about marriage, so I was showing my wink.
Well, I was just...
Your wink is a little scary.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I just kept looking over at Aaron saying, I've been waiting for you.
Then I winked at her with my whole face.
When she winks, her mouth is open.
I can't wink without opening my mouth either.
No, it's like putting mascara on with your lips closed.
Oh, you can't do it.
Impossible.
It just doesn't work.
Can you sneeze with your eyes open?
I don't know.
I've never
Isn't that a random question? But that's what popped in my head. So the strange
now
thing
I
was
want to try.
Your eyes got huge.
Try it and let me know.
I can't sneeze on demand, though.
I mean, whenever you do, just try. If you feel it coming, just try to keep those eyes open. Let's see what happens.
All right. I'll give it a try. Well, you were saying that this is your allergy season.
It is. So it could happen in the show, and I'll see if I can keep my eyes
We'll
open.
let y'all know what happens.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. It's so exciting.
Post-nasal drip, allergies. Yep, that's what time it is.
Everything's dropping.
Everything's dripping and dropping.
Tell me about it.
I don't know what that feels like.
Aw.
Another topic on our marriage discussion today.
We are talking about marriage today, and there are so many jokes jumping around in my head that
filter.
I'm just passing over. We've been talking about relationships.
Yes.
And so now we are wrapping it all up by talking about marriage relationships. Go to JoyceMeyer.org/talk it out and download that free book on relationships, because Joyce talks a lot about her and Dave. And there are some great stories, and
They're funny.
There's a lot to learn from Joyce
So
and Dave's
much to learn.
50 plus years of marriage. So we're going to call her a little bit later today and find out a little bit more from Joyce and how to keep those marriages going. So let's begin a little bit about our own marriages. So Aaron, you and Mike have been married how long?
9 years.
9 years.
9 years.
And how did you meet?
Oh, I know we were going to talk about that. That's
Well, we don't
so
have
cute.
to if you don't want to.
No, I love it. It's
Okay,
good.
good.
She changed.
Let me tell you
I
all
love
about
it.
it. That's cute. We met, I was living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Mike was living here in Missouri working at Joyce Meyer Ministries, and I worked for an ad agency that worked with the ministry. So we dated long distance. We actually met via an email because my bosses came to the ministry for a meeting and met Mike and asked him if he was single, and he said... Yeah. Why? So he looked me up on our internet website. That's what that's a website
On the
is on the
interwebs.
internet. Did you know that?
That's what they said in the 2010s.
Yeah, exactly. And he thought I was cute enough, so he sent me an email.
I remember.
Do you?
I do.
You knew him
He was
then.
so excited.
It's so cute.
It was instant love.
I really was. So he would come and drive 6 hours every other weekend to visit me. He stayed with my parents the first weekend, and he just couldn't get enough of me, so he drove back every other weekend.
Wow.
Yep. We dated for 9 months, and then I moved here to Missouri. Then we got married.
And it's history.
The rest is history.
Yeah. And Jay, you and Isaiah.
Me and Isaiah, we've known each other since I was about 11. He was 12.
Wow.
Yeah, he and his mom started going to our church, and Isaiah is a very tall guy, and even at that time, he was still pretty tall for his age, and he was getting bullied and chased, more chased home by like gangs and things like that at the time. And so his mom, she ended up bringing him and her, they started coming to the church.
Wow.
And he was this rebel, and he sat in the back of the church with a hat on, and everybody's like, pull your pants up. And he was like, no, you know. He was just like a rebel, and I liked it, you know. I was like,
You said that.
bad
I
boy.
liked it.
Who is that sinner boy? You know? As I sang worship and played the piano. Had my eye on the prize. But then as we grew up, like we just became really good friends and really like almost enemies because he would always like say mean jokes to me. He'd always, man.
Wow, he knew the way to your heart.
Oh man, and it was funny though. It was really funny. Like he's just hilarious. But then I remember one time he would straight the church and left for a little bit, and then came back and I was leading worship again, and he came up to the keyboard and was like, "We're gonna get married. I'm gonna get my life together. We're gonna get married." And I was like, "Get out of here! I ain't thinking about you." And I was in college at the time. But then a few years later, I mean, there's a whole story to tell about that because he's straight. He was not. So I still got some forgiveness with that one because the process between him telling me he was gonna marry me and us actually getting married, he was not very good. He got on my nerves a little bit, and we could talk about that. But now we've been married. We got married when I was 20. And so we've been married 17, almost 18 years now.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Ginger?
Well, my husband, Tim, and I have been, oh my goodness, he is the one that is much more.
I love this about you.
He knows everything. He knows how long we've been married. He knows when our first date was. He sends me flowers, the anniversary of our first date, and
Still
so sweet. And I'm here thinking, how long have we been married? Oh my goodness. So I want to say 33 or 34 years.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, so we met on a blind date in college, and it was one of those things where, I was like, oh, he's nice, but I wasn't sold.
Mm-hmm. You
I mean,
I can
Like, I
I could do better.
I'm going to play this thing out and see how it goes.
You're a hot commodity.
But he wore me down. I mean,
Aw.
he was so persistent, and he was there. And that man, he just loved me through everything. He would pick me up from other dates.
Did he really?
He did. Like, I called him one time from a bad date, and he's like, I'm on my way. And
Wow.
And he would say, I love you, and I would say, thank you. And
I did that too.
anyway, he wore me down. This is the best thing that's ever happened.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's been a lot of really wonderful years and some rough times, but
Sure.
lots of really good stuff. So we're polar opposites in most ways. He's the engineer and I'm the creative.
Yeah.
He's the planner, I'm the adventurer. Let's go see what happens. And he's like, well, here's my Gantt chart that will tell us what will happen. So anyway, it's so interesting the way that God puts people together.
Yes.
And the way that things work out or don't work out,
Yeah.
it's not always what you expect. So in talking about relationships, we have a lot to learn from God's word. I mean, without that handbook, I know I would have completely messed all of this up a long time ago. And
Yeah.
with Joyce and Dave's relationship too, definitely. I mean, Joyce was in a place where Dave had a lot of work to do when they first met, and she likes to talk about that a lot of the time. So whether you're married or not, we all come into marriage or other relationships with expectations, and those expectations can cause a lot of problems. So let's listen to this, and then we'll talk about it.
I think one of the things in our lives that gives us a lot of problems is just having unrealistic expectations. When you're expecting somebody to give you something they don't know how to give you, or to maybe understand something about you that they could not possibly understand, especially if you're expecting somebody to make you happy all the time. And I do think a lot of people, when they get married with the idea that now you're going to make me happy all the time. And first of all, some of the things that you feel when you're dating somebody is totally different than the way you feel, after you've been married for a while. And so there's a lot of excitement and goosebumps and all those things. It's almost like, the chase is different than when you actually get what you want. For example, I didn't know when I married Dave that he played golf. He wasn't focusing on that at that time. He was focusing on me. I was like the most important thing in his life. However, we'd been married about a week when he told me that he was going to go out and hit shag balls, which that happens to be what guys that are serious about golf do to practice. Well, his whole family was coming over to see our new little apartment. And because of the way I was raised, I wasn't really comfortable with the whole family situation anyway. And so I couldn't believe that he was going to go out and hit shag balls and leave me there to do all this work by myself. Thus, we had our first argument over golf. And it certainly was not the last, but it was the first. And I just think it's interesting, as much as he loves all kinds of sports, and especially golf, that we got married and I didn't even know that he played golf. So just trust me when I say you are going to find out some things after you're married that you did not know before you got married. And that doesn't mean they're all bad. You'll find out a lot of good things too. But do as much as you can to get to know as much as you possibly can about the person that you're going to marry before you get married. So what are you expecting from your relationships? This works also with friendship, but we're going to talk mainly about marriage today. What are you expecting? Are you expecting this other person to keep you happy all the time? Well, you know, it was a great day for me, and I'm sure for Dave, when God spoke to my heart and instructed me that I was to stop giving Dave the responsibility of keeping me happy. He said, your joy is your own responsibility. It's not somebody else's responsibility. And I do think in relationships that we really think this other person is supposed to keep us happy all the time. They're supposed to make us feel good about ourselves all the time. But to be honest, if you don't already have a sense of confidence, if you don't already feel good about yourself, then there's no human being in your life that is ever going to be successful at making you feel good about yourself all the time.
So did you have any false expectations going in?
Yeah. That's such a big topic in marriage. I think, yes, the answer is yes. And even still to this day, I can see those just creep up in the day-to-day. Like, I expected you to empty the dishwasher because it's full.
It seems to make sense.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But that is not what is perceived on the opposite side. So, but yeah, for sure in the beginning of marriage, I think that's, for us, I had shared about this in season 1, but some of the stuff that Mike and I went through, a lot of that was based on expectations on both sides, and that affected us greatly for a couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Jay?
I expected Isaiah, because I've talked about this a bunch of my relationship with my father, which is actually a lot better. Every day it gets stronger. But
That's great.
in the past, it was not strong at all. And that was when we got married, was one of the roughest times for me, because I was in the middle of emancipating myself on top of still being an honorable child. You know, that weird season of I'm a grown up, but I'm still a kid. I'm a grown up. And I thought marriage was going to rescue me. I thought marriage was going to get me out of that. And I thought Isaiah was going to protect me from that, when I really needed to face my own giants, figure out a balance between communicating things with my dad and then still having honor. So I did have those expectations of Isaiah to, like, stand up for me. Don't let him do this. Don't let,
Yeah.
And Isaiah's just is a chill dude, a lot like what Joyce says about Dave. Isaiah's just super, he's big, but he's like a gentle giant, and he's just kind of like super peaceful, super chill. And it just wasn't his personality, but I wanted him to be like, this is my wife now. But it didn't happen.
How did you work through that?
We almost divorced several times, because I was just like, you don't protect me. I was just like, you're not a protector. And it made our relationship, especially at the beginning, it just strained it so much, because I was just like, you're letting this still happen to me. You're letting different people do things to me. And I was looking for a protector. And in a sense, he is supposed to protect. Like, that is the, one of the roles of a husband, but not in the sense that I wanted. I wanted a Superman, and I wanted him to do my work, but thankfully because he's so much different than me, it was like that yin yang, like he was the perfect fit, that he was just patient with me and was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And you need to face your own stuff. And I can help you through it, but I can't speak up for you. So
what about you guys?
We were kind of the opposite. Tim and I, in many ways, fit opposite roles sometimes, because I was just fiercely independent. Still am. So I had to learn. I had this expectation that I could go into marriage and still be that fiercely independent person.
Yeah.
And marriage is all about becoming one flesh. You
Yeah.
know, it's all about compromise. And that took us both a while because I felt like he wasn't letting me be me in
Yeah,
some ways.
sure.
And he felt I wasn't letting him come in and be a part of this relationship and protect and those things that you're talking about. And so that was a real struggle for us
Sure.
for quite a while. And talk about that word submit. Oh my goodness.
Ooh.
I wrote that one down to ask you about if it got easier.
Don't ask me, ask somebody else.
Ginger doesn't know.
No, you know what it does? It doesn't get easier. I don't think easier is the word, but I think the Holy Spirit allows it to become more natural. It becomes part of our life,
Yeah.
but it's not because it's easy, because I still want to do everything my own way. I still want to have all kinds of room and autonomy and all that stuff. But you find the place where you respect one another.
Yeah.
So if you're in a relationship where it's submit, I would still really struggle with that.
Yeah.
But the Bible does say to respect and submit to one another.
Yeah.
And so I still respect him as the leader of our house. I want to be really clear, because if you don't have that right hierarchy in your house, it will fail. And that was so hard for me. It took me a long time, still working on that. But for us to learn to submit and respect and love one another the way that Christ loves the church,
Yeah.
that is where we began to get in that groove. And it only took like 34 years. So
there's hope.
It just happened last week.
Let Mike know we're getting closer.
No, but those expectations that Joyce was talking about, very, very important. And we have to learn who we each are, because I had a lot of things that I wish had been different about Tim. You know, I wish that he was more craving excitement the way that I was and wasn't quite so much of a planner. You know, I wish that he was more driven, because I'm really driven and he's really comfortable. Like, why can't we be this power couple? You know what I mean? But we're not going to be that.
Yeah.
But what we found was the niche that we're supposed to be. Because if Tim was who I thought I wanted him to be, we would have been miserable. You know, who else is going to put up with the things that I do around the world and the things that I'm
It's
part
true.
of? That he has a peace in all of that, and he totally supports what God is calling me to do. If we both were driven in different ways, that would have been completely different. So sometimes you might get what you ask for and it's the wrong thing. So I am so grateful that God knows what it is more than we do what we need.
Yeah, because I know, like, I've shared it with you guys, like, with Isaiah. I remember earlier in our relationship, I'd prayed, like, things like that. Like, I wish he was a bit more driven or a bit more emotional, like, because he is a stone wall. Like, you know, he would just sit and look at me. But recently, man, he started doing, I told y'all he was doing counseling stuff, and, his emotions. He's got them.
He's exploring those.
He's exploring them. I don't want him to explore them anymore.
Let's put them back.
Let's put them. You get what you pray for.
Back in the box.
It's been a fun journey, but it's like, you ladies, really be careful what you pray for, because when it comes,
Definitely.
you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
enough of that.
Yeah. Well, these mistakes that we all make in our relationships and in our marriages, there are just so many things to learn. So Joyce has another great mistake to share that we often make going into marriage. So let's see what she has to say.
Next big mistake you can make is planning to try to change the person. Especially like if you notice some things before you get married and you're thinking, I can change that. I'll work on that. Well, let me tell you something. I tried every way that I could try to get Dave not to like sports. No reason other than selfishness. I didn't care about him. I didn't grow up getting to do any of that. My father never liked any kind of sports. We didn't have them on television. We didn't none of that was part of our life. And so it's just not anything that I really am going to put my time into. So I didn't want him to like it. But I can tell you the truth, the more you try to get somebody not to do something, the more they're going to want to do it. I mean, that whole principle is found in the Bible about the law. That's why the law caused people to sin more, not less. And God did that on purpose to show people that they needed a Savior. So the more you try to make somebody not do something, the more they're probably going to want to do it. And actually today, Dave loves all kinds of sports that he didn't even like when we got married. I mean, he's added things that he doesn't even play. Like now he watches tennis all the time. He doesn't play tennis. You know, he'll watch a bowling tournament on TV, and that, you know, that has nothing to do with anything. But you know what? Now I'm just has nothing to do with anyway what I'd like him to be interested in. But you know, Dave is not. He's not a real aggressive man. His personality is not real aggressive. He always said, "You're always ahead of God," and I said, "Yeah, and you're 10 miles behind him." And so here we have these two people that are married, and I'm just real aggressive, and he's not as aggressive. And so I tried to get him to be more aggressive, and I would say to him, you know, you need to be more of this, and you need to be more of that. And you know how awful it is, how it makes a person feel if you're constantly giving them messages that they're less than what you want them to be. You need to be this, you need to do that, especially if it's not something they even know how to do. And I'll never forget the day he said to me, he said, "You better thank God that I am the way I am, because if I wasn't, you sure wouldn't be doing what you're doing." And so I just want to remind you today that there's a really good possibility, no matter what you think, that the person that you married is really perfect for you. I didn't expect anybody to clap, but that's all right. You can't pressure somebody to be something that they're not. Now, you know, what we focus on is what develops more and more in our life. So if I focus on what I don't like about somebody, then pretty soon that's all I see. But if I focus on what I do like, most of the time you'll find out, no matter how bad you think your relation is, most of the time you will find out if you focus on what you do like, there's probably a lot more that you like than what you don't like. That's true. I love the fact that Dave is peaceful. I love the fact that he's easy to get along with. I love the fact that he just lets me be me. If I went to Dave and said, "What would you like to change about me? You know, if I could change something, what would you like me to change so you could be happier?" He said, "Nothing. I like you just the way you are." And so if you had asked me that question 30 years ago, I probably had a written list already. I mean, because I actually remember times when I sat down and made a list of everything that I thought Dave needed to change for me to be happy. Well, I know that there are things. I mean, Dave couldn't possibly like everything about me. I know that because I already know what my weaknesses are and some of the things that nobody would want to put up with if that was all they focused on. And I know that there are things about Dave that I probably don't care for, but to be honest, if you ask me that now, I would have to think a really long time to come up with it. You know why? Not because it's not there, but I don't focus on it.
So focusing on those things that we really appreciate rather than the things we want to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true, though.
Should we just call Joyce now?
Yeah. I think we should.
It's better that we do that.
Let's just get right to it. Let's give her a call.
Hello.
Hi, Joyce. We were just listening to you talk about the list of things about Dave that you love and the list you used to have about things that you would have changed.
Yeah, right.
Well, we were talking about our own marriages a little bit, and there are a lot of similarities. You and I have talked about this actually between you and Dave and Tim and myself, and some of those similarities. And I wish he was just a little bit more assertive, you know, that we could do some of these things in ministry together, and learning he's exactly who God wants him to be. So we need some help now with some of these things, and all of our friends who are listening.
Maybe I still need help.
Well, getting to that point where, because a fault can be just glaring in front of you, so that's all that you see. How do you look past that fault and dig into the wonderful things that God has put in your relationships?
I think you need to pick your battles. That's something that I've learned that's really important, and you need to know the person you're married to well enough to know what they're going to be open to talking about and what they're not. Most of us have a few areas that we protect a little bit more, and like I know how much Dave loves his golf, and it would be pointless for me to talk to him about quitting playing golf.
Pick your
Not gonna
battles.
happen.
It would be like a nonsense conversation. And I'm getting an extreme exaggeration, but I used to try to get him not to play golf years and years and years ago because I didn't want him to. I didn't grow up liking sports, and I didn't want him to like them. And of course, that was all very selfish. But I do think pick your battles is very wise because there's only so many things that you can say to anybody without them starting to feel like you're just nagging them all the time. And as soon as that happens, they're going to resent you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helps me if I pick my battles. A lot of times I've really learned to pray about something before I say something. And I wish I was a little more perfect at it than I am. But even when I do need to talk to Dave about something, I don't just go do it whenever I feel like it anymore. I pray about it and really kind of wait for God to show me the right time.
Yeah. Well, there are definitely different stages, I think you could say, in a marriage. I mean, Tim and I at this point are we love to be together. We laugh. We have a great time. We have very few big disagreements anymore. I mean, they still happen, but we've worked through a lot. So Aaron and Mike are at a stage where they have two little ones, and life is going at a roaring pace. And so, Aaron, what are some of those things that you and Mike are dealing with?
It's hard. We were actually just talking about this, that we've always communicated really well, so whenever we've had a disagreement, we could just talk through it then. Well, now we have these two small children, and if they see Mike and I talking, well, they want to come talk to us too because the world revolves around them. So it's hard for us to communicate in the moment. But then I am not good at keeping in things till later, till bedtime. So I tend to lose it. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be able to communicate like that with these small children. And there's an added tension. God to help you adjust your impatience a little bit, because I do know one couple that they have a certain time every week. Yeah.
They sit down and meet together about whatever they want to talk about.
Sure.
Or they do it a week at a time. But so during the week, you're not allowed to tell somebody what you don't like about them or what made you unhappy. And it's amazing how many things by the time the actual time comes to talk about it doesn't matter to you anymore.
That's so organized.
So how do you do that? Because just practically speaking, that's going to mess with my pride a little bit. Because if something comes up, and I just like to talk about it when it happens. So how do you do that? Do you write it down until it's time to meet, or what does that practically look like?
Yeah, they write things down.
Okay.
They write things down that they want to talk about when they do meet, and I don't think you'd necessarily have to wait a week if it's. Both of them probably are geared in a direction where their personalities allow them to wait a week and it not bother them at all. So you have to think about, you can't ignore the way you are, but you can't just either demand that everything be done
Yeah.
according to the way you are, because now you have kids, and obviously they're not going to leave you alone. So you don't have to wait a week, but maybe you could grow in discipline to where you could at least wait until they went to bed.
That's a really good point.
You're going to have to
And,
chill.
I'm gonna have to chill, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
It's probably healthy.
You have to make adjustments when you have children, as you well know.
You
And,
do.
Yeah.
So
It's been interesting too. That's brought up something in us, is just because your selfishness comes out even more when you have kids, and so we find that with each other. We get irritated because we have to be so on for the kids.
It's true. You have new pressures all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have a new responsibility. It's a new season in life, and you really can't. It's even like I tell single people sometimes. It's like, I know you want to get married, but there are benefits to being single too. You don't have to get permission every time you want to do something. So enjoy the season that you're in. And there was a time when you and your husband could talk about anything you wanted to, anytime you wanted to. But now you have to find a new normal.
Yeah.
Because that's just not your normal anymore, and it's probably not going to be. And so the first way to change is to change your mind about the change. So
That's good.
you have to get it in your thinking first. I'm no longer going to be able to just talk about things that bother me the minute that they bother me. I have to learn to wait. It's amazing how our behavior follows our thinking.
Yeah. And Jay and her husband have been, you need to say this in your own words, Jay, but I want to say, like, going through some deep soul searching things. And
Yeah. I don't know. I think it was like this realization of, I'll be 40 in a couple of years, and then Isaiah, will be 40. And all those lists of things that you have when you're like in your 20s, like by the time I'm 30, I will blah, blah, blah. And then now you're like almost 40 and you haven't done any of that stuff. And so then both of us are very, very like passionate about ministry and about things that we're doing. And then we have a 16-year-old daughter now. And so it's just, I don't know. I don't want to call it a midnight life crisis, but it's almost one of those things where it's like we're both very emotional, where we're soul searching and really just trying to figure out, God, what is our place in this world? What are we supposed to be doing right now? It's very difficult for me because this is very, very new for me with Isaiah. Like, he's just not really an emotional person. And so I don't know. I don't know if you ever dealt with that, but help me.
No, with Dave, you don't deal with emotions. That's never been the problem. I might enjoy seeing one every now and then. But let me ask you a question. Are you both at the same place, or is he like more discontent or dissatisfied or searching than you are?
I think I might be like a couple steps ahead of him when I know kind of a little bit more of what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm in it, and he's in it, but not in the way that he would like to be, and he's exploring more, and it's just an unsure season for him, and he's just really like, so it's similar. We're in similar paths, but I don't know. It's hitting him, and he's actually open to like. I've shared with the ladies that he's going to counseling and stuff now too. So he's just like, whoa, I'm not used to all of this,
Well, a lot of times you can't. My goodness, I had big things in my heart a long time before I had the big things, and I let them frustrate me. And you live life forward, but you understand it backwards. And I can look back now, and I really wish that I would have enjoyed where I was at more on the way to where I was going. Nobody really understands God's timing. So all he can really do is lay his hand to what's in front of him and kind of bloom where he's planted and watch for God to open other doors. You can't knock doors down. You have to wait for God to open those doors. And if what he feels in his heart is right for him, then he can have the assurance that God will open those doors at the right time. Now, if he feels like he really is supposed to be doing something and he has that as a word from God, then he can start looking for something in the area of what he wants to do. But those are about your only choices. You either wait on God, or if you really feel released and it's not just works of the flesh, then you can step out and push on the door, I guess, and see if it opens. You still can't bang it down. How long has it been going through this?
This has really been the past couple years now. Like when things really, it started for me emotionally after I had to have a hysterectomy. Like I had, and so emotionally, my
well, that's just hormones, Jay.
I know. I was just like, but then I guess then he went through it too.
Not the hysterectomy.
I mean, I swear men go through a change of life. They'll never admit it, but they do.
I know.
Maybe you should be glad he's just getting counseling. My husband went out and bought a sports car.
Okay, I'll take counseling.
Well, it does all come down to what you were saying about not trying to change them and dealing with ourselves, and that whole piece of who we are in Christ and our relationship with God, and then seeing the good in each other instead of all those things that are on the surface that we want to focus on instead. Thank you.
There are things you need to deal with, but like I said, you got to pick your battles and pick your timing.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's good.
Okay, have a good day, ladies.
All right,
Joyce.
bye. So in this little booklet that we've been talking about, I mean, the quintessential guide, of course, to relationships is in the Bible. It's 1 Corinthians 13. It tells us what love is all about. Joyce calls it the main ingredient. It's what makes it work. And it's so hard because it says love is patient and kind. It's not rude. It does not insist on its own way. You lost me there. It's not touchy or resentful. It keeps no accounts of wrongs. It's always ready to believe the best. All those things.
It's such a great verse to read at your wedding, and it sounds so wonderful. And then you get into your marriage, and it's harder to apply that.
You just want to sing, "What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me.
Love stinks." No, but God gave us these things because He can help us walk in this way. And no one can always be patient and always be kind and never rude. But with the Holy Spirit working in us, this is our goal. And He doesn't say, "I'm going to leave you and expect you to do this on your own. I'm going to help you do this."
Yeah.
And when you do, when you check your heart, it will change. Your relationships.
It will. That verse is special to me because when Mike and I first got married, and we were going through those few years of just really hard times and working through expectations we both had coming into marriage. The part of that verse that stuck out to me that God really put on my heart was keep no records of wrongdoing, because Mike and I would have these conversations over and over again about the same thing, and I'm thinking, God, why is this not changing? I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
And He just kept saying, don't keep records of wrong. I will work in Mike, but you can't hold that over him, so let me do the work.
Yeah.
It's just really hard. But the more that I could turn my eyes to Christ during those times, and even now, I feel like our relationship is so much stronger when I am focused on Jesus and not on Mike's flaws. So you're right. The Word is everything.
Yeah.
Get rid of that list of that line. If that's the case, then that was one of the things if I had kept every single thing that Isaiah ever did wrong and all of his flaws, I've known that man since I was 11. So that's a lot of stuff. And there were some painful things that he said.
He pulled my hair
He
when I
did.
was 12.
Wait, real
and
quick,
I will not forgive him
he
for it.
did call me out because my parents wouldn't let me shave my legs when I was 12. I remember at camp. We were camp counselors. And he was like, whoa, you got some hairy legs. I had some shorts on, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so I still remember that. And I need to forgive him.
Time, Jay.
And anytime I
Time.
forget to shave my legs, now I'm like, don't you say anything.
You keep your mouth
You
shut.
keep your mouth shut. It's winter.
It's no shave November.
No shave
and
November.
it's fine.
If you can grow your beard out, I can grow out my leg hairs.
And you've been married 17 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we have had such fun with everyone just talking about this, and we hope that there's been something that we've all shared together that will spark a little bit of hope in your relationship, because that's the other thing that 1 Corinthians says, that love keeps hope alive.
Yeah.
So keep hope alive in your marriage, keep hope alive in your relationships. Take a step back, look at your marriage. Where can you lighten up a little bit? Take some of the pressure off of your husband to be something that he isn't, and celebrate him for what he is. Focus on what you do like about him and tell us what those things are. So get on social media, use hashtag Talk It Out Girls.